This is one of the greatest stupid matches in the history of wrestling. I'm so entertained by this match.
Let's go through what happened. So Moxley comes through the crowd and basically does his normal entrance, and then he goes to the stage, and the match, or not the match, but the fight starts on the ramp with them standing there, letting each other hit each other with the forearms. And then within about the first 30 seconds, Moxley takes a little bump off to the floor, and Felix runs down the entrance ramp, cannonballs over the cameraman, and hits Moxley with his ass right in the fucking head and drives him to the ground. And Moxley bounces hard off the fucking ground. So the ass in the head was hard, and then the fucking landing on the ground was hard.
And he looked rocked. If you go back and watch it, Moxley looks rocked right away.
He normally has a goofy expression on his face, but this was even worse. But you could tell also because he couldn't get up. Because Felix tried to pick him up and throw him back in the ring, and his legs, Moxley's legs wouldn't work. They went to rubber. And he dropped back down. And then Felix tried to put him against the railing in front of the front row. And his legs went to rubber again. And now Felix is chopping him. I guess he's trying to wake him up, like slapping him around. You okay? And finally, he rolled him in the ring, and then they rang the bell to start the match. Well, that's the first way he got hurt. But now they've started doing the fucking match, right? They've rung the bell. And you can tell that Moxley is still groggy because Felix started doing his ridiculous tumbling, but it's like his dance partner was a zombie. To where the fucking announcers were even saying, oh yeah, Moxley looks like he's been rocked, or he's weak in condition, whatever. But then after a couple minutes, Moxley stopped Felix and started doing shit to him.
Yeah.
And now it was a regular match between not a regular wrestling match, but a regular Moxley-Felix match. They fought in the middle of the crowd. Nobody was even scared enough to back up. Did you see that? The fans were all bigger than both of them. They're out in the crowd, and everybody's like reaching in to pat him on the back instead of cowering like, don't hit me. So then Moxley pushes Felix off the railing into the front row on top of some kids and risks a lawsuit, and then hooks Felix with the double arm, draping him over the railing, gives double fingers to the camera, mouths the word fuck to the camera, to the floor camera, like an 8-year-old kid, and double arm DDT'd Felix on the floor. And then half-ass rolled him in and covered him and got a 2 count. And at this point, I'm like, what an unprofessional twat. And then Felix did a bunch of flips and got a 2 count. And then Moxley leveled him with a lariat and did another finger. But then they go back to the floor. And then Felix again drops Moxley feet first over the guardrail into some kid's lap. And that's where Moxley was supposed to hang there until Felix went to the top rope and came off with the leg drop, but Moxley was just hanging over it. And there was nothing for Felix to drop, so he just went right down his back and landed on his ass in a fucking heap.
Yeah, by the way, there were other options for him, too. He could have found something else to do in that moment.
Anything. If you're gonna break the world high diving record by jumping off a 100-foot platform into a bucket of water, and somebody moves the bucket, do you have to jump anyway? And then they went to the break, because I wrote, good God, there's more of this.
And I had to watch through the picture-in-picture, because again, it looked like Moxley was rocked, and they just kept doing heavier and heavier shit to each other.
Yes, and in picture-in-picture, Moxley was killing him. He hit him with a pile driver. He's chopping him. And then, again, they come back from the break, and Felix hit a double stomp off the top rope for a 2 count. And then they went to the ramp, and Moxley curb stomped Felix on the ramp, and the fans started singing Seth's song when he did the curb stomp. And then Moxley hit a pile driver on him and got a 2 count. And then he beat him up some more. And then they went into the closing, as it turned out it would be the closing sequence. Moxley goes up to superplex Felix off the top, right? And Felix knocks Moxley off to the mat. The bump looked fine. He didn't hit his head. As soon as he landed, Moxley placed himself perfectly for the senton that was coming, had his arms into his sides, till he knew exactly what was going on. Felix hit the senton off the top, and it wasn't like a Jeff Hardy, I'm just going to land on your ass. And suddenly, he picks him up, he gives him this pile driver, he covers him. The referee goes to count, corpse referee, Rick Knox, useless. The referee counts 1, 2. Moxley doesn't move a muscle. A foot doesn't come up. A hand, a shoulder, nothing. And the referee holds up at 2.9, and the crowd starts booing. And then Moxley says something. You see him say something even before the referee starts counting. But he counted and held up. And then he says something else while the crowd is booing. And then somehow out of that, Felix jerks him up and picks him up and gives him another one of what he's just given him. And it looked like his head hit again. 1, 2, 3. Now, we know this was not the finish. Moxley was not supposed to lose the title nor to lose the match. We know that Moxley made the decision to not win the match because he got hurt. So we're expected to believe that Moxley said, give me another one of those? Felix is a moron and has to pick him up and drop him on his head again. It was the referee's fault that the match didn't end, even though it was not the right finish, that it didn't end with the first pile driver because the referee didn't do his job. When nobody kicked out, he still didn't count. He exposed the business in front of all those people. It wasn't even close. It wasn't a judgment call. Nobody was fucking moving.